All right, so we're diving deep today into IELTS listening prep.
Sounds intense.
It is kind of. I mean, after going through all these podcasts and articles, I'm realizing this test,
Yeah.
it's not just about understanding English, you know? It's like
No.
it's like some next level code breaking.
Uh-huh. I like that analogy.
Right.
It's true, though. The IELTS listening test throws a lot at you.
Yeah.
Different situations,
Yeah.
all kinds of challenges. Like, think about Section 3, the group discussions.
Oh, yeah, those are tough.
Have you ever tried following a conversation
Uh-huh.
with like 5 people all talking at once?
With different accents.
With different accents.
Oh, different.
My opinion. It's like,
yeah.
well, it's like trying to juggle while riding a unicycle.
Yeah. I had this one practice test. It was about electric cars, right? And they had this person with this thick Scottish accent, and then someone else was speaking super fast Australian slang. And I was just like, wait, what are we even talking about anymore?
Yeah, classic IELTS, right?
Totally.
It's not just about the words. Yeah. It's about processing all that information at once.
Filtering out the distractions.
Exactly. Filtering out the distractions, finding the key points.
So how do we even start to make sense of all that? The podcast mentioned this thing called pre-audio prep, but honestly, I'm a little lost on what that actually means.
Okay, so pre-audio prep, it's all about using those few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
You get, before the recording starts,
yeah.
You have that little bit of time.
Right.
Instead of just staring at the question booklet,
yeah.
you use it strategically.
Okay.
Scan those questions, underline keywords. Try to anticipate what you'll need to listen for.
Okay, so for example,
Yeah.
if the question asks for a specific date,
Yeah.
then I know to be extra careful when they mention numbers.
Exactly.
Like I'm getting a sneak peek at the blueprint before they start build.
I like that. A sneak peek at the blueprint.
Right.
And speaking of blueprints,
Okay.
understanding how each section is structured.
Yeah.
That's super important. You mentioned the 4 sections earlier,
Yes.
but let's break them down a bit more. Sections 1 and 2, they're fairly straightforward.
Okay.
Everyday conversations, monologues.
Like booking a hotel.
Right, like booking a hotel or listening to a museum guide.
Those seem okay. But then Section 4, the academic lecture. I've heard horror stories. Dense vocabulary, complex sentences. People talking a mile a minute makes me want to hide under my desk.
Uh-huh. I get it. It can be intimidating.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest mistakes is going in passively.
What do you mean?
Like trying to absorb every single word.
Okay.
You'll just end up overwhelmed and lost.
So what's the alternative then? How do you actively engage with a lecture when it's packed with all this info you might not even understand?
That's where those active listening techniques come in.
Okay.
Instead of absorbing everything,
Yeah.
you focus on the speaker's main arguments.
Yeah.
What evidence are they using? Pay attention to their tone of voice,
Okay.
how they emphasize certain points, and most importantly, try to predict what they'll say next
Yeah.
based on what they've already said.
Wow, it's like turning the lecture into a puzzle.
Right.
Instead of passively listening, you're actively piecing things together.
Exactly. And the more you practice this,
Yeah.
the better you'll get at picking out that key information.
Okay, I like that. Speaking of challenging, the different accents in the test, they mentioned US, Australian, Canadian. Do I really need to be familiar with all of them? I mean, how different can they really be?
You'd be surprised.
Really?
Accents can be really different, not just pronunciation, but vocabulary, even grammar.
Huh?
Remember that electric car discussion you mentioned?
Yeah.
Imagine if one person said boot instead of trunk,
Or
petrol instead of gas.
Yeah.
Small differences.
Yeah, but they can throw you off if you're not prepared.
That's true. So how do I train my ears to handle all these accents? Do I need to binge watch British sitcoms and listen to Australian radio?
Uh-huh. Well, immersing yourself can help.
Right.
But there are more targeted approaches.
Like what?
One effective technique is focusing on specific phonetic differences.
For example, many non-native speakers struggle to hear the difference between the E's in ship
Okay.
and the E in sheep.
Oh, yeah, I still mix those up sometimes.
Right. So there are resources online
Okay.
like BBC Learning English. They have pronunciation guides and interactive exercises that focus on accent features. You can even find podcasts
Oh, that's
specifically designed to help you get comfortable with accents.
okay. That's a relief. I was starting to feel a little overwhelmed, honestly.
It's a lot to take in,
Yeah.
but with a bit of focused practice, you can start to decode even those trickiest pronunciations.
Okay, so we've covered pre-audio prep, understanding the structure of the sections, and navigating the accent maze. What other ninja skills do we need in our IELTS listening arsenal?
Lots more to cover.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm ready.
You mentioned distractor defense earlier.
Uh-huh.
Let's unpack that a bit.
Okay.
The IELTS listening test is known for its sneaky wrong answers.
Yeah.
They sound plausible at first. These distractors, they're designed to test your attention to detail and your ability to pick the most accurate answer.
Oh, I've definitely fallen for those before. I remember one question it asked about a woman's favorite hobby. They mentioned a bunch of things she enjoyed, so I picked the first one thinking it was obvious. But later on, they revealed her true passion was something completely different.
Classic distractor technique.
Ugh.
They throw in a seemingly right answer early on, hoping to catch out those who aren't listening carefully.
Okay, so how do I avoid those traps?
You have to listen to the whole recording
Okay.
before making a decision. Pay attention to qualifying phrases or any additional details that might change the meaning.
So it's like they're testing our ability to see through the smoke and mirrors.
I like that.
Right, it's like a mental game of hide and seek with the correct answer.
Exactly. Another common distractor technique,
Okay.
using synonyms or paraphrases.
Okay.
The question might use one word,
Right.
but the recording uses a different word with the same meaning.
Oh, okay.
So the question might ask about the benefits of something, while the recording talks about its advantages.
Ah, so it's not enough to just listen for specific words. I need to be able to recognize different ways of expressing the same idea.
You got it.
Okay.
That's why building a strong vocabulary is so important.
It's like they're saying, hey, if you want to master this test, you better be ready to flex your vocabulary muscles.
Uh-huh, exactly.
But building vocabulary takes time. Any shortcuts?
One effective technique
Yeah.
is learning words in context.
What do you mean?
So instead of just memorizing lists of words,
Right.
try to encounter them in real-world settings, like in podcasts, articles, even conversations.
Okay.
This helps you understand how words are used in different situations.
So it's like learning a new dance move. You can read about it in a book,
Okay.
but you won't really get it until you actually practice it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Another tip,
Yeah.
pay attention to word families.
Word families.
Yeah. Often if you know one word in a family, you can figure out the meaning of related words.
Give me an example.
Okay, if you know the word photograph, you can probably guess photographer, photography, pajikera, and photographic.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So it's like unlocking a whole treasure chest of new words with just one key.
Exactly.
That's way more efficient than memorizing each word separately.
Right. And don't underestimate the power of repetition.
Okay.
The more you encounter a word, the more likely you are to remember it.
So I should make an effort to use new words.
Yeah.
In my own speaking and writing.
Exactly. It's like giving those words a regular workout.
Keep them from getting rusty.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
All right, so lots of great tips for building vocabulary.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And remember, your brain can get fatigued,
Oh, yeah.
just like your body.
True.
It's important to take breaks. Don't overload yourself with too much new information at once.
That's a good point. I tend to get so focused on learning that I forget to give myself a break.
It's a common trap,
Yeah.
especially when you're preparing for a test like this.
Mm.
But learning is a marathon, not a sprint. Pace yourself. Take breaks when you need them, and celebrate your progress along the way.
That's great advice. Thanks. So we've covered pre-audio prep, understanding the structure of each section, navigating those tricky accents, and building our vocabulary. I feel like we've got a pretty solid foundation now.
We've made a good start.
Yeah.
There's still a lot more to cover.
Okay, bring it on.
In the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore some specific test-taking strategies, common challenges, and how to approach practice effectively.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. Stay with us as we continue to unpack the secrets to IELTS listening mastery. All right, so we've talked about the test format and active listening and, getting our ears ready for those tricky accents. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What about actual test day strategies? Anything I can use to boost my score, like secret hand signals, coded messages, a lucky listening hat, maybe.
Uh-huh. A lucky hat might not hurt, but I think those other strategies might raise some eyebrows in the exam hall.
Okay, fair enough. No secret hand signals.
But there are plenty of legitimate techniques you can use to help you perform your best.
Okay, good. So what about note-taking? Should I be doing that during the listening test? My handwriting's a bit messy, so I'm always a little hesitant to jot things down while I'm trying to focus.
I hear you. That's a common concern. And it really comes down to personal preference.
Okay.
Some people find note-taking helpful, others find it distracting. The key is to find what works best for you.
Okay.
If you do decide to take notes, keep them brief. Use abbreviations or symbols to save time. Remember, the main goal is to understand what you're hearing, not to create a perfect transcript.
Right. It's more about capturing those key words and phrases, like the main points of a lecture or the specific details of a conversation, like creating a mental map of the information.
Exactly. A mental map.
Not trying to draw a perfect picture.
Right. And speaking of maps, one technique I really recommend is what I call question mapping.
Question mapping.
Yeah, before each section starts. Take a moment to visualize the questions in your mind. Think about the order they're presented in, and any key words or phrases that stand out.
So like mentally plotting the course before we set sail, so we know what landmarks to look out for along the way.
I like that analogy.
Right.
This technique can be especially helpful in Section 3, with the group discussions.
Yeah.
Remember, multiple speakers overlapping conversations. It's easy to lose track of who said what.
Right.
But if you map those questions beforehand, you can stay focused on the information you need.
That's a great tip. It's like having a mental checklist.
Yeah.
To guide me through the chaos.
Exactly.
Okay, so note-taking question mapping. What other strategies can we use on test day?
One of the most important is managing your time effectively.
Okay.
You have a limited amount of time to answer all those questions, so you need to work efficiently. Don't get stuck on any single question.
That's easier said than done, especially when you come across a question that totally stumps you. I tend to get fixated on finding the perfect answer, even if it means I lose time on other questions.
I understand. But remember, all questions are worth the same number of points.
Okay.
Don't waste precious minutes agonizing over one question.
Right.
If you're not sure, make an educated guess and move on.
So it's like a strategy game. I need to prioritize my efforts and allocate my time wisely. It's about maximizing my overall score.
Exactly.
Not striving for perfection on every single question.
Right. And speaking of strategy,
Yes.
let's talk about multiple choice questions.
Okay.
Those can be tricky on the IELTS listening test because they often include distractors.
Oh, yeah, I hate those. They always make me second guess myself.
I hear you. Is there a way to approach them so you don't fall for those traps?
I hope so.
One technique is to use a process of elimination.
Okay.
Before you even listen to the recording, read through all the answer choices.
Okay.
Eliminate any that are obviously wrong or that contradict information you already know.
So it's like narrowing down the suspects in a detective novel.
Right.
You start with a lot of possibilities and then use your logic to eliminate the unlikely candidates.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Then as you listen to the recording, focus on identifying key words or phrases that support or contradict each choice.
Okay.
Often the correct answer will be paraphrased or expressed a little differently than in the question.
So it's not just about finding a word-for-word match. I need to be able to understand the meaning and connect the dots between the question and the audio.
Right. And another tip,
Okay.
pay close attention to the wording of the question stem.
The question stem.
Yeah. Sometimes the question itself will give you clues about what to listen for.
That's a good point. I tend to get so caught up in the answer choices that I forget to really analyze the question.
It happens.
Yeah, it's like trying to solve a puzzle without looking at the picture on the box.
Exactly.
Okay, so by analyzing both the question and the answer choices, I can increase my chances of picking the right answer and avoid those pesky distractors.
Exactly.
Okay, what about fill-in-the-blank questions? Those always make me nervous, especially when they involve numbers or dates.
I understand why those can be challenging. They require you to understand the audio.
Right.
And transcribe specific information accurately. And when it comes to numbers and dates, even a small mistake can cost you points.
The pressure. I remember this one practice test. I missed a question just because I wrote 1998 instead of 1988. I knew the right answer. But my brain just went on autopilot and wrote the wrong year.
That happens.
Yeah.
It's easy to make those slips under pressure.
Yeah.
To avoid that, be super attentive when you hear numbers and dates. Repeat them to yourself in your head or jot them down in your notes.
Okay.
And always double check your answers before moving on.
So it's like a mental workout, trying to keep all those numbers and dates straight. It's all about precision and focus.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered time management, question mapping, strategies for tackling those tricky multiple choice questions, and tips for handling those fill-in-the-blanks. Anything else?
One more important thing.
Okay, I'm listening.
Managing stress and anxiety.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
The IELTS listening test can be nerve-wracking,
Tell me about it.
especially when you're aiming for a high score.
Yeah, I get so nervous before exams. My heart races, my palms get sweaty, and my brain feels like it's gone into hibernation mode.
It's completely normal to feel some anxiety.
Right.
But too much stress can really hurt your performance.
In what way?
It can mess with your concentration,
Okay.
slow down your processing speed, even lead to careless mistakes.
Yeah, I can see that happening. So how do we tame that stress monster? Keep our nerves in check?
One of the best ways is to practice relaxation techniques.
Relaxation techniques.
Yeah, things like deep breathing exercises,
Okay.
meditation, mindfulness.
So it's not just about prepping my brain for the test. It's about prepping my body and mind to stay calm and focused.
Exactly. It's like training for a mental marathon.
Right. Not just a quick sprint.
Right. And another important thing is cultivating a positive mindset.
Okay.
Instead of dwelling on what could go wrong,
Yeah.
try to visualize yourself succeeding. Remind yourself of all the hard work you've put in. Trust in your ability to do well.
So it's like replacing those negative thoughts with messages of encouragement and confidence.
Exactly.
Like giving myself a pep talk before the big game.
Right. And remember,
Yeah.
the IELTS listening test is just one part of your overall score.
True.
Don't put so much pressure on yourself
Right.
that you lose sight of the bigger picture.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the moment and forget why I'm doing this in the first place.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys,
Okay.
let's talk about practice.
Okay, bring it on.
It's no secret that practice is crucial for the IELTS listening test.
Right.
But not all practice is created equal.
So just listening to podcasts or watching movies isn't enough. I was hoping I could just binge watch my favorite British detective show and call it IELTS Prep.
While immersing yourself in English is good,
Yeah.
you need more targeted practice
Okay.
if you want to maximize your score.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that
Yeah.
is to use official IELTS practice materials.
So it's like training for a specific sport. You can't just go for a run and expect to compete in the Olympics.
Exactly.
You need to practice the specific skills and techniques.
Right. Official IELTS practice tests. They're designed to be like the real exam experience.
Okay.
Same format, timing, difficulty level.
So it's like getting a sneak peek behind the scenes, seeing how the IELTS magic works before the big show.
I like that analogy.
Right. It's about taking the mystery out of the test
Exactly.
and building my confidence through familiarity.
Right. And when you're practicing,
Yeah.
try to simulate test conditions.
Okay.
Find a quiet space. Set a timer. Don't pause or rewind the recordings.
So it's like creating my own little IELTS boot camp at home. I'm putting myself through the paces, building my resilience for the real deal.
Exactly.
Okay, I like it.
And remember, practice isn't just about going through the motions.
Right.
It's about analyzing your mistakes, identifying your weaknesses, and using that feedback to improve.
So it's not enough to just check my answers and move on. I need to really dig deep, figure out why I missed certain questions, and use that information to adjust my strategies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways to do that is to listen to those recordings again.
Okay.
This time with the transcript.
Okay.
Pay attention to any words or phrases you missed, and try to see if there are any patterns in your errors.
So it's like becoming my own IELTS detective,
Yeah.
examining the evidence, piecing together the clues.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Cracking the code of my listening mistakes,
Exactly.
turning those errors into learning opportunities.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
If you're struggling with a specific part of the test, maybe join a prep course or work with a tutor.
Okay.
Sometimes an outside perspective can be really helpful.
It's like having a personal trainer for my listening skills, someone to guide me, motivate me, help me reach my full potential.
Exactly. And remember the journey to IELTS listening mastery. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Be patient with yourself, celebrate your progress, and never give up on your goals.
This is all so helpful. Thank you. I feel like I have a much better understanding now. But I am curious, what are some of the most common challenges people face when they're prepping for the IELTS listening test? What are the hurdles I should be aware of, and how can I overcome them? You know, we've been talking about all these strategies and tips, but honestly, one of the biggest challenges I can see is just staying motivated, you know?
Absolutely.
Especially with all the prep work involved.
Yeah.
It's easy to get overwhelmed
Totally.
by all the material, the pressure to do well. A lot. One common challenge is what I call information overload.
Information overload. What's that?
There are just so many resources out there.
Yeah.
Books, websites, apps, podcasts.
It's true.
It's easy to get stuck just trying to choose the right ones.
Oh, tell me about it.
I remember spending hours just browsing different IELTS prep websites,
Yeah.
comparing features, reading reviews. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of options.
It's like analysis paralysis.
Right.
but for language learning.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, you have the pressure of time.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people are prepping for the IELTS
But
while also working, studying, or taking care of family.
it's a lot to juggle.
Trying to find the time and energy to study consistently. It can be really tough.
So how do we stay motivated with all of that going on? How do we keep our eyes on the prize and our energy levels up?
Well, one of the most effective strategies is to set realistic goals
Okay.
and break down your prep into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay.
Instead of trying to cram everything in at the last minute, create a study schedule that works for your life and allows you to make consistent progress.
So it's like creating a roadmap for my IELTS journey.
Exactly, a roadmap.
Breaking that huge mountain into smaller, more manageable hills.
I like that.
Yeah.
And don't forget to celebrate your milestones along the way.
Oh, that's a good point.
Each practice test you complete, each new vocabulary word you learn, each listening skill you master, it's a step closer to your goal. Acknowledging their small victories can really boost your confidence and keep you motivated.
So it's like giving myself little rewards along the way,
Exactly.
recognizing the progress I'm making.
Right. And speaking of support,
Okay.
don't underestimate the power of connecting with others who are also preparing for the IELTS.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Maybe join a study group or an online forum.
Yeah.
It can provide a sense of community,
Okay.
support accountability.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders.
Exactly.
Support system to keep me going when things get tough.
Right. It's a reminder that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Others are facing the same challenges and celebrating the same wins.
Sharing tips, strategies, or even just venting about frustrations can make the whole process feel less daunting.
Absolutely. It's a shared journey.
Okay, so we've talked about setting realistic goals, breaking down prep work, celebrating milestones, and connecting with others. What other challenges should I be aware of, especially for the listening test itself?
Well, one common hurdle is the speed of the recordings.
Oh yeah, those can be fast.
The IELTS listening test uses a variety of accents and speaking styles.
Right.
And some speakers can talk really quickly,
Yeah,
which can be tough for those who are used to a slower pace.
it's true. So what can I do to prepare for that?
One good strategy is to practice listening to faster audio.
Okay.
There are tons of resources online, podcasts, news broadcasts
Uh-huh.
that use fast-paced speech. You can also adjust the playback speed on your audio player to gradually increase your listening speed.
So it's like training my ears to sprint,
Exactly.
gradually upping the pace
Right.
until I can keep up with even the fastest speakers.
And another tip is to focus on key words and phrases.
Okay.
Don't try to understand every single word.
Right.
Just listen for the main ideas and the supporting details.
It's like panning for gold, sifting through all that audio to
Yeah.
find those nuggets of information.
Exactly. You don't need to understand everything perfectly
Okay.
to answer the questions correctly.
It's good to know.
The IELTS is designed to test your ability to extract key info, not to see if you have encyclopedic knowledge of every topic.
That's a relief. So it's about listening smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Focusing on what's important.
Right. And speaking of smart listening,
Okay.
another challenge is dealing with distractions.
Oh, yeah.
The test can be given in different places, and there might be background noise or other things that make it hard to focus.
Oh, I've totally been there. I once took a practice test in a library, and the person next to me kept sniffling and coughing. It was so distracting.
I hear you. And while you can't control the environment,
Right.
you can train yourself to focus better.
Wow.
One way is to practice listening in noisy places.
Okay.
Get your brain used to filtering out those distractions.
So it's like building my own mental noise-canceling headphones.
Exactly.
Training my brain to lock onto that audio signal.
Right. You can also try visualization techniques.
Visualization.
Yeah. Before you start listening, close your eyes and picture yourself in a quiet, peaceful place
Okay.
where you can focus without any distractions.
It's like creating my own mental sanctuary, a place to escape the noise and chaos
Exactly.
and fully immerse myself in the audio.
Right. And remember the IELTS listening test. It's just one piece of your overall score.
Right.
Don't let a few distractions throw you off completely.
That's true. It's easy to get caught up in the moment and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Exactly. Speaking of the bigger picture,
Yes.
it's important to know what score you need
Okay.
and tailor your preparation accordingly.
So it's like setting a target
Right.
and then figuring out the best way to reach it.
Exactly. And remember, the IELTS isn't just about language skills.
Okay.
It's also testing your strategic thinking,
Oh, interesting.
your problem-solving abilities,
Mm.
and your ability to handle pressure.
Wow, this has been so helpful. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of the IELTS listening test. It's not just about memorizing words or grammar rules. It's about developing these skills and strategies. That'll help me not just on the test, but in life in general.
That's exactly what we were hoping for.
Yeah.
We want to empower you to approach the IELTS
Yeah.
with confidence
Okay.
and to keep developing those listening skills, even after the test is over.
I think that's a great message for our listeners. The IELTS is a challenge, for sure, but it's also an opportunity to push ourselves to grow and to really engage with the English language.
I love that.
So as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with one final thought. Embrace the challenge, embrace the journey, and never stop listening.
You've got this